The massive alien ship hung in the sky above New York. It had been there for 3 days. People pointed and took pictures. Some were scared. Others were excited. But everyone was waiting. Captain John Martinez stood at the landing zone, his uniform crisp and neat. He had been chosen to meet the aliens. The United Earth Space Command had picked him because he was calm under pressure. And meeting the first aliens to visit Earth was certainly pressure. "Are you ready, Captain?" General Miller asked, standing beside him. John nodded, as ready as anyone can be to meet beings from another star. The ship was beautiful. It shimmered like water in sunlight. No sharp edges or weapons could be seen. It didn't look like the warships humans built. A beam of light shot down from the ship. It touched the ground and spread out. Within the light, shapes began to form. The aliens were arriving. 3 tall figures stepped out of the light. They had blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and dark. They wore simple white clothes with strange symbols. John stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth. I am Captain John Martinez." The tallest alien bowed slightly. "I am Zoral, representative of the Arcturian Confederation and the Galactic Council. We come in peace and friendship." Zoral spoke perfect English. The humans were surprised. "We have been studying your transmissions for many years," Zoral explained. "Your languages were not difficult to learn." Over the next few days, humans and Arcturians talked. The aliens shared information about the galaxy. There were hundreds of intelligent species. Most lived together peacefully in the Galactic Council. John was assigned to stay with the aliens. He answered their many questions about Earth and humans. The aliens seemed most interested in human history. "Your species has fought so many wars," said Kelvy, another Arcturian. "Why do you keep fighting each other?" John didn't know how to answer. War was part of human history. It just was. "Most species in the galaxy evolved away from violence long ago," Zoral said. "Your continued preparation for war is unusual." 1 week after they arrived, the aliens asked to see a military base. John was worried, but his orders were to cooperate. At the base, the Arcturians watched soldiers train. They saw tanks and planes. They asked to see weapons. The generals were nervous but showed them. "These are designed only to kill other humans," asked Taylor, the 3rd Arcturian. "Yes," John admitted, "but we hope to never use them." The aliens looked at each other in a way John couldn't understand. "You build these terrible things because you fear others might build them first," Zoral said. It wasn't a question. Later, in a private meeting with Earth's leaders, Zoral explained more about the galaxy. "Most species evolved to cooperate, not fight. War is rare among the stars. Few species understand violence as humans do." The president asked, "Is that why you came? To study our violent nature?" "No," Zoral replied. "We came because the galaxy is changing. We came because you are different." That night, John couldn't sleep. He walked outside to look at the alien ship glowing against the stars. Kelvy found him there. "Your people are afraid of us," the alien said. "Some are," John agreed. "Humans fear what we don't understand. Yet you face your fears. You prepare for them. You imagine the worst and plan for it." Kelvy looked up at the stars. "Most species in the galaxy never evolved this way. Is that good or bad?" John asked. Kelvy was quiet for a long time before answering. "I don't know, but the Council wishes to learn more. We would like to invite humans to join us among the stars." John looked at the alien in surprise. "To join the Galactic Council?" "Not yet," Kelvy said. "First, we must understand each other better. The Council needs to decide if humanity is ready. And if they decide we're not." Kelvy didn't answer. John looked back at the stars and wondered what was really waiting for humanity out there. 6 months had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Now, it was time for humans to visit the stars. Dr. Susan Wright stood in the shuttle bay of the Arcturian ship. Through the large window, she watched Earth grow smaller. Her heart beat fast with excitement and worry. "It's beautiful from up here," said a voice behind her. Susan turned to see Saul, one of the Arcturian crew. The alien was tall with gray-blue skin. His 4 arms were folded across his chest. "Yes, it is," Susan agreed. "I've seen pictures from space, but it's different to see it with my own eyes." Susan was the leader of the human team going to meet the Galactic Council. She had been chosen because she was smart and good with people. She had worked for the military before becoming a diplomat. "Are you nervous about meeting the council?" Tall asked. Susan smiled. "A little. It's not every day you represent your entire species." The human team was small. Besides Susan, there was Alan Peters, a young historian. Lisa Holloway was their communications expert. Captain Paul Jackson was their military advisor. The Earth governments had chosen them carefully. The journey to Centauri Prime would take 2 weeks. Susan used this time to learn more about the galaxy. Zal was a historian like Alan. He taught them about the many species in the Galactic Council. Most evolved from plant-eaters or group hunters, Zal explained. Few had the violent past that humans did. War is rare among Council species. How do they solve problems? Alan asked. They talk. They share. Sometimes, they wait hundreds of years to find a solution everyone likes. Zal said. Humans aren't that patient, Susan said with a smile. Zal nodded. That is what makes you different. You push forward. You take risks. You plan for dangers that might never come. One night, Susan found Zal studying old Earth videos of war. These disturb me, the alien admitted. So much death. So much waste. Yet you keep these records. You study them. We remember our mistakes so we don't repeat them, Susan explained. Yet you still build weapons. You still train soldiers, Zal said. Because we fear what might happen if we don't, Susan replied. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Zal looked at her with his large dark eyes. Most species in the galaxy never felt that need. They never had to think that way. When they finally reached Centauri Prime, Susan was amazed. The planet was covered with beautiful cities. Ships from 100 worlds filled the sky. Their shuttle landed at a huge building made of something like glass. It caught the light and broke it into colors. The Hall of Worlds, Zal said. The meeting place of the Galactic Council. As they walked from the shuttle, aliens of all shapes and sizes watched them. Some looked like insects, others like birds or reptiles. Some didn't look like anything from Earth. They're afraid of us, Lisa whispered. Susan had noticed too. The aliens kept their distance. They watched with what seemed like worry. We are something new to them, Captain Jackson said quietly. Something they don't understand. A group of tall aliens with long necks approached. They wore colorful robes with many symbols. The council welcomes the human delegation, one said. I am Vero, first speaker. We have prepared rooms for you. As they followed Vero into the building, Susan noticed how the other aliens moved aside. They whispered to each other. They've been told about our history, Alan said. About our wars. Susan nodded. She had expected this. Humans were different. They had fought wars. They had killed their own kind. They had built weapons that could destroy worlds. But they had also learned from their mistakes. They had grown. They had made peace among themselves. They need to learn who we really are, Susan told her team. Not just what we were. But as they walked deeper into the Hall of Worlds, she wondered if that would be enough. The Galactic Council was about to judge humanity, and Susan wasn't sure they would understand a species that had been shaped by fear and war. The assessment chamber was a large round room. 7 council members sat at a high table. Each was from a different species. They looked down at the human team standing in the center. Susan felt small under their gaze, but she stood tall. She was here to speak for all humans. The council will now begin its assessment of the human species, said Vero, the first speaker. We will review your history, your culture, and your readiness to join galactic society. A thin alien with pale green skin spoke next. I am Neth, historian of the Council. We have studied your transmissions for many years. Your history troubles us. Images appeared in the air. Wars, battles, weapons, soldiers. Thousands of years of human conflict played out before them. Your species has known little peace. Neth said, you fight over land, resources, ideas, and differences that seem small to us. Susan nodded. We have a violent past. We don't deny it. Yet you continue to prepare for war, said another council member. This one looked like a large insect. Even now, when you have no enemies in space. Not all threats are known, Captain Jackson said. We prepare because we must. The council members looked at each other. Susan could see they didn't understand. Alan Peters stepped forward. May I speak? The council nodded. Humans fear war, Alan said. We know its cost better than most. That is why we prepare for it. That is why we study it. We don't want war, but we know it can happen when people aren't ready. A strange logic, said a bird-like council member. You prepare for the very thing you fear. Because we fear it, Alan explained. Our history taught us to be ready, to prevent war by being strong enough to survive it. The council asked many more questions about human weapons, about human armies, about how quickly humans could change from peace to war. Susan answered honestly. Humans were not perfect. They fought. They disagreed. But they also worked for peace. They built together. They helped each other. Your technology is not as advanced as many council species, said a council member with 4 eyes. Yet your weapons are surprisingly effective. We had to be creative, Captain Jackson said. We had to find ways to protect ourselves. As the questions continued, Susan noticed something strange. Some council members seemed too interested in human weapons. They asked detailed questions about how humans fought, about strategies and tactics. During a break, Susan talked with her team. They're asking too much about our military, she said. Something isn't right. I noticed it too, said Lisa. It's like they want to learn how we fight. But why? Alan asked. They say they hate violence. I don't know, Susan replied. But I think there's something they're not telling us. When the assessment resumed, Susan decided to ask her own questions. You've asked much about our capacity for war, she said. Why is this so important to the council? The council members looked at each other. Some seemed uncomfortable. We must understand all aspects of your species, Vero said. But you focus on our conflicts, Susan pressed. Is there something we should know? Silence filled the room. Finally, one of the council members spoke. This one was small with blue skin and large eyes. We have known peace for thousands of years, he said. Most council species evolved beyond aggression. We don't think like warriors. We don't understand conflict as you do. Is that a problem? Alan asked. The blue alien looked at the others before continuing. It was not. Until recently. Susan felt a chill. There was something here. Something important. What changed? She asked. Before any council member could answer, the doors to the chamber opened. An alien rushed in and whispered to Vero. The first speaker's face changed. Susan couldn't read alien expressions well, but she knew worry when she saw it. The assessment will continue tomorrow, Vero announced suddenly. The council must attend to other matters. As the human team left the chamber, Susan knew something was wrong. The council was hiding something. Something that made them very interested in humanity's long history of preparing for war. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. Something about the council's questions bothered her. She got up and took out her communication equipment. What are you doing? Alan asked, waking up in the next bed. Listening, Lisa said. She adjusted her equipment. The council is hiding something. Maybe I can find out what. Lisa was very good with communications. On Earth, she had worked with secret codes and hidden messages. Now she used her skills to listen to the alien networks. Most of the signals were in languages she didn't understand, but her computer could find patterns. It could spot unusual activity. "There," she said, pointing to her screen. "There's a lot of encrypted traffic coming from the outer systems, much more than normal." "Can you decode it?" Alan asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not all of it, but I'm getting fragments." Words appeared on her screen. Frontier stations. No response. Missing colonies. Unknown ships. "Something's happening out there," Lisa whispered. "Something bad." In the morning, Lisa showed her findings to Susan and Captain Jackson. "We need to confront them," Captain Jackson said. "They're judging us while hiding the truth." Susan nodded, but carefully. "We don't want to reveal that Lisa was listening to their communications." When they met with a council aide, Susan asked for a tour of Centauri Prime. "We'd like to see more of your beautiful world," she said with a smile. The aide agreed. He took them to gardens, libraries, and markets. Everything was peaceful and orderly. "Your civilization has achieved so much," Susan said. "No war, no conflict. It's impressive. The council species learned long ago that cooperation is better than competition," the aide explained. "Yet you still have defense ships," Captain Jackson noted, pointing to vessels in the sky. "Why, if there are no threats?" The aide looked uncomfortable. 4. Scientific exploration. Susan saw her opening. "We noticed many ships leaving yesterday. A scientific mission." The aide didn't answer right away. His eyes darted around. Finally, he sighed. "Please, not here," he whispered. "Come with me." He led them to a quiet garden where no one else was around. "What I tell you is not public knowledge," he said quietly. "The council doesn't want panic." "What's happening?" Susan asked. "There is a threat. From beyond council space, a species we call the Voidborn." Captain Jackson leaned forward. "What kind of threat?" "They appeared 6 months ago. They attacked our frontier worlds without warning, without communication. They just took what they wanted. And the council is fighting back." Alan asked. The aide looked down. "We try, but we don't know how." Susan didn't understand. "Your technology is advanced. Your ships are powerful. But our people are not warriors," the aide said. "We don't understand violence. We don't think in terms of strategy and tactics. The Voidborn do. They plan. They adapt. They use methods we cannot predict." Lisa's eyes widened. "That's why the council asked so many questions about human warfare." The aide nodded. "The council species evolved beyond aggression. It was a source of pride. But now," he looked afraid, "now it may be our downfall." Later, back in their rooms, the humans talked about what they had learned. "They're facing an enemy that thinks like we used to," Captain Jackson said. "Like warriors, like conquerors. And they don't know how to fight back," Susan added. "They never needed to learn." "What do we do?" Alan asked. "Should we offer to help?" Before anyone could answer, there was a knock at their door. When Susan opened it, Vero stood there. The first speaker looked tired. "The council requests your presence," he said. "All council deliberations have been suspended. There is a more urgent matter." "The Voidborn," Susan said. Vero's eyes widened. "You know." Susan nodded. "We suspected something was wrong. Now we know what." "Then you understand why I am here," Vero said. "The council needs your help. We need you to teach us what we never wanted to learn." "How to fight," Captain Jackson said. "How to think like warriors," Vero agreed. "How to think like humans." The council chamber was different now. Instead of formal seats and quiet talk, it was filled with screens showing maps of space. Aliens rushed around with worried faces. In the center was a large table. On it, a 3D map showed many star systems. Red dots were spreading across it. "These are the worlds the Voidborn have taken," Vero explained. 23 planets in 6 months. Each one lost all contact within days of first Voidborn ships appearing. Susan and her team studied the map. Captain Jackson walked around it slowly. "They're moving in a clear pattern," he said. "Not random attacks. They're securing territory and resources as they go." The council members looked surprised. "How can you tell?" asked Neth, the historian. "It's a classic invasion pattern," Captain Jackson explained. "They take key systems first, then fill in the gaps. They're creating a defensive front while they digest what they've taken." The council members looked at each other. This was new thinking to them. "We have tried to talk to them," a bird-like council member said. "We sent peace ships. They were destroyed. We sent messages. They were ignored." "Because the Voidborn aren't interested in talking," Captain Jackson said. "They want what you have. Your worlds. Your resources." "But why?" asked an alien with 4 eyes. "The galaxy has enough for everyone. We would share." The humans exchanged looks. They understood something the council aliens did not. "Not everyone thinks that way," Susan said gently. "Some want to take, not share. Some want power over others." "Like in your human history," Neth said, understanding now. Susan nodded. "Yes. Like in our history." Vero stepped forward. "This is why we need your help. We need to understand how the Voidborn think. We need to know how to stop them." Captain Jackson studied the map again. "Can I see the Voidborn ships? Their weapons, their tactics?" A council aide brought forward data tablets. The humans spent hours going through them. They watched recordings of Voidborn attacks. They studied the alien ships. "They're using standard military tactics," Captain Jackson said finally. "Any human general from the last 500 years would recognize them." "So you can help us fight them?" Vero asked, hope in his voice. Captain Jackson looked uncomfortable. "We can advise you, but there's a problem." He pointed to recordings of council ships in battle. "Your people don't understand fighting. They don't react like warriors." "What do you mean?" asked Neth. "When attacked, your ships try to run or protect each other. They don't fight back effectively. Your captains don't understand strategy or tactics." Lisa spoke up. "Your technology is amazing. Your ships are powerful, but your people don't think like fighters. Can this be learned?" Vero asked. The humans were quiet for a moment. "Yes," Susan said finally, "but it won't be easy. You'll need to change how you think. You'll need to understand conflict. To think like humans." Some council members looked unhappy at this idea. "To fight like the Voidborn would make us like them," one said. "Like you." Susan felt a flash of anger. "We're not like the Voidborn. Humans prepare for war because we fear it. We understand its cost. We fight to protect, not to conquer." Ellen stepped forward. "Throughout human history, we've had to face aggressors, people who wanted to take from others. We learned to fight back, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. And now you must learn too," Captain Jackson said, "or lose everything." The council members spoke among themselves in quiet voices. Finally, Vero turned to the humans. "Show us," he said. "Show us what we need to know." That night, Susan couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of their rooms, looking at the peaceful city outside. "Heavy thoughts?" Ellen asked, joining her. "We came here to prove humans were ready for peace," Susan said. "Now we're teaching them war." "Not war," Ellen corrected. "Defense. Protection. There's a difference." Susan nodded slowly. "I hope the council can understand that difference. It took humans thousands of years to learn it." "They don't have thousands of years," Alan said, looking at the stars. "They have weeks. Maybe days." Susan knew he was right. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's oldest, darkest skills were suddenly the most valuable gift they could offer. The next few days were busy. Captain Jackson set up training for council ship captains. Susan worked with council leaders to plan a defense. Lisa helped fix communication systems to be more secure. Ellen dug through council history records. Not everyone liked the humans' help. Some council members thought fighting was wrong, even to defend themselves. They wanted to keep trying to talk to the Voidborn. "You don't understand," a tall blue alien told Susan. "Violence is not our way. Never has been." "I respect that," Susan said. "But the Voidborn don't. They see it as weakness." In the main hall, Captain Jackson used the big map table to show council captains how to fight. "You must protect your flanks," he explained. "The Voidborn look for weak spots. They attack where you aren't ready." The alien captains tried to understand, but many had trouble. They had never thought about fighting before. "It's not natural for us," one captain admitted. "My people were plant eaters. We ran from danger. We never fought back." Lisa noticed the problem too. "Their brains don't work like ours," she told Susan. "They don't think in terms of attack and defense." But some aliens learned faster than others. A few began to understand the human way of thinking. "It feels strange," said Toro, a young captain. "But I can see the pattern now. I can think like they do. Like you do." Meanwhile, Alan made an important discovery in the history records. "Susan, you need to see this," he said one evening, bringing a data tablet to her room. "What is it?" she asked. "Council history. The real history." Alan's eyes were wide. "They told us all council species evolved to be peaceful. That's not true." He showed her the records. Long ago, the galaxy had many aggressive species that fought wars. That took what they wanted, but over time, they disappeared. "What happened to them?" Susan asked. "Some were pushed to the edges of the galaxy. Others were changed." "Changed how?" Alan looked troubled. "The early council species used genetic engineering. They made the aggressive species more peaceful. They changed their brains. Their instincts." Susan stared at him. "They changed other species without asking. They thought they were helping," Alan explained. "They believed aggression was a disease they could cure. So the peaceful galaxy wasn't natural," Susan said. "It was created. And it left them vulnerable to species like the Voidborn. And like us." The next day, Susan shared Alan's discovery with Captain Jackson and Lisa. "It explains a lot," Captain Jackson said. "Why they can't understand fighting. Why they can't learn it easily. Their ancestors made sure of that." "Should we tell the council we know?" Lisa asked. Before Susan could answer, alarms sounded throughout the city. Council aides rushed into the room. "Voidborn ships," one cried. "They've broken through the outer defenses. They'll reach Centauri Prime in 3 days." Susan and her team rushed to the control center. Council leaders were panicking. The screen showed many Voidborn ships moving toward them. "We're not ready," Vero said, his voice shaking. "Our captains haven't learned enough. Our people don't understand what to do." Susan looked at the screens, then at her team. A plan was forming in her mind. "Captain Jackson," she said, "how many of the council captains have learned enough to follow basic battle plans?" "Maybe 30, he said. "Not enough for a full defense." "But enough for a surprise attack?" Susan asked. Captain Jackson's eyes widened. "You're thinking of hitting them first, not waiting for them to reach us?" Susan nodded. "The Voidborn expect you to run or wait. They don't expect you to attack." "It could work," Captain Jackson said slowly. "A small force, hitting hard where they don't expect it, creating confusion." Vero and the other council leaders looked shocked. "Attack them?" Vero asked. "Not defend. Not wait." "Yes," Susan said firmly. "You must take the fight to them. Use their own tactics against them." The council room fell silent. This was a huge change in thinking for them. "Can we do this?" Vero asked finally. "Can we become what we've spent thousands of years trying not to be?" Susan looked him in the eye. "You can learn to fight without losing who you are. Humans did." After a long moment, Vero nodded. "Tell us what to do." The plan was simple but dangerous. Captain Jackson would lead 30 council ships to attack the Voidborn fleet before it reached Centauri Prime. They would hit fast and retreat, again and again. They would confuse the enemy. "Remember what we practiced," Captain Jackson told the alien captains. "Don't try to win. Just hit and run. Make them chase you." Susan watched from the command center as the council ships left. On the screens, she could see the Voidborn fleet. It was large and moving in a tight group. "They don't expect an attack," she explained to Vero and the council leaders. "They think you will only defend." The council ships moved quietly toward the Voidborn fleet. They used a trick Lisa had taught them to hide their signals. The Voidborn didn't see them coming. When they were close enough, Captain Jackson gave the order to attack. The council ships fired and then turned away quickly. The Voidborn ships were surprised. Some were damaged. "It's working," Alan said, watching the screens. "They're confused." The Voidborn ships tried to follow the council ships, but they split up, just as Captain Jackson had taught them. They led the Voidborn in different directions. "Now for part 2, Susan said. The main council fleet was waiting. When the Voidborn ships were spread out and confused, the main fleet attacked. They hit hard, focusing on the separated enemy ships. For the first time, the Voidborn were losing. Their careful plans were broken. They didn't know what to do. "They're retreating," someone shouted. The screen showed the Voidborn ships turning away. They were leaving. The command center filled with cheers. Susan hugged Alan and Lisa. They had done it. They had stopped the Voidborn. But the victory had a cost. Many council ships were damaged. Some were destroyed. Many aliens had died fighting a war they never wanted. Days later, the council held a special meeting. The humans were invited as guests of honor. "You have saved us," Vero said. "You have taught us what we did not want to learn. How to fight. How to think like warriors. We taught you how to defend yourselves," Susan corrected. "There's a difference." Neth, the historian, stepped forward. "We have something to share with you, something we found in our oldest records." He showed images of ancient battles, of ships that looked like council ships fighting other ships, fighting well. "Our ancestors knew war," Neth admitted. "They fought. They conquered. But they decided it was wrong. They changed themselves. They changed others. They tried to create a peaceful galaxy. And it worked," Alan said, "until the Voidborn came. Until we needed what we had thrown away," Vero agreed. "The knowledge you still had." Lisa had been quiet, studying the records. Now she looked up. "This isn't the first time," she said. Everyone turned to her. "Look at the patterns," she explained. "Every few thousand years, a new aggressive species appears. The council finds a species that still knows war to help them. Then that species joins the council. Guardian species,